Hello, it's February 21st, 2023. It's a SIG Node weekly meeting. Welcome, everybody. I want to start this meeting today with update on our PR status. I didn't include this table before, like last 4 meetings, I think. We've been deep into enhancement freeze and enhancement work, and I felt that it may not be top of mind for everybody. Before that, I mentioned that the number of PRs was growing because of everybody was busy with enhancement, mostly approvers. And I think now we're at the stage where it's still growing because we don't have many approvers around. So today we have 230 PRs. It's one like close to the maximum we had ever. And I know Murnau has limited availability these days. So we'll need to find, we'll need to start being creative on approving things. If you have any FOMO of what's going on, you can always click on these links. It summarizes PRs created, closed, merged last 4 weeks. There's not many surprises there. So yeah, just click through and you will catch up on what's going on with SIG Node. With that, I want to get into beginning of the meeting, and I think first item from Lucy. I think it's Lucy. If you're on a call. I don't see anybody with this name on a call. Share my screen. Maybe it will be easier. So there's a link that Lucy, Lucy created. Further threshold. Okay. Needs to read it through. Yeah, I think it will go through our typical triage and we will reply there. Ian, I think there is a lot of discussion happening, so maybe somebody can kick off this conversation and we can discuss in voice, and then maybe if we need more notes, we can put it later. Is Ian around?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so the situation that we're looking at is we have like a 32 physical core system, 64 vCPUs. We're specifying -- reserved CPUs with a subset of those cores, eight vCPUs in fact. This CPU manager policy is static. We have some pods that are using a static allocation, like they have full entitlement of an entire vCPU or several vCPUs, and those work perfectly. There's nothing running on those CPUs and everybody's happy there. But for the pods that are scheduled that don't have such a static allocation of resources specified in their configuration, we see that those pods are getting allocated to the cores that are specified on the -- reserved CPUs line. This was kind of not what I was expecting to behave. I was expecting that the -- reserved CPUs would not get any Kubernetes tasks scheduled on them, but that's not what I'm seeing. I was just wondering if this is appropriate to create an issue for, or if I misconfigured something. I probably misconfigured something, but.
If what you are describing is true and were shared who is spawning across the resolved CPUs, then probably it's a bug. It sounds like a bug.
Okay, then I will create an issue for this. Thank you.
As was right, he is also here, so maybe. Yeah, I agree with that.
I was trying to answer the question that was actually captured there. So I was trying to describe the reserved CPU flag itself. But I think this is something that I've noticed is expected, because you're supposed to configure your system to have isolated CPUs separately. So again, it's a way of saying you could consider this a bug, or you could, configure your system and have isolated CPUs configured properly, and
Yes.
then we wouldn't see these issues.
So in this case, we do have isolated CPUs configured. We have actually every CPU but those 8 reserve CPUs is configured as an isolated CPU.
And you're still noticing that the pods that are being allocated from the default pool end up getting CPUs from the reserved ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I think that is a bug for sure. If you can maybe create an issue, we can take a look.
Cool.
And Swati, if you can suggest, do we need a kubelet lock in this bug, or do we need like more verbose kubelet lock? If you can advise, it would be great.
Yeah, I think kubelet log. Maybe if you can describe C groups as well. You know how those default pods are getting CPUs allocated. I think that information would be useful as well. Probably kubelet log has that information, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, and kind of one side question is, how does how do the isolated CPUs kind of actually interact with kubelet? Does it detect which CPUs are isolated and make any decisions with them, or does it expect that the isolated CPUs should be configured in alignment with the reserve CPU spec?
I don't think kubelet understands isolated CPUs automatically. It's an implicit assumption that you'd configure it aligned with isolated CPUs.
Okay, that clarifies things. Thank you very much.
Problem.
Yeah, and if there is a lack of documentation as well, maybe we need to have separate bug clarifying that. But yeah, let's start with fixing the issue first. Okay, next up, Michal.
Yes, so this is something that I started a long time ago because when working on the job pod failure policy, we wanted to annotate failed pods with the information about the reason for the failure. And one of the possible reasons was that the pod is unkilled. So we wanted to recognize this fact. But it turned out that there are like complications and also it's not clear how to it's not standardized. That was one thing, and another thing that there was a bug in actually Cryo that on C group v2 it wouldn't actually produce this reason, this killed. So this was recently fixed by developers in Cryo. I bumped the test infra images to point to the latest version of Cryo, so that now the test passes because the first PR is that it introduces a test, E2E test that checks that the reason is unkilled. For the context, the feature about the job pod failure policy don't use this signal. So we restricted the feature to only these situations where we know what's going on. This was deferred, and maybe we will return to this, but probably under a different cap. But for now, we want to, yes, progress with standardization so that this would open us this route in the future to improve handling of failed pods in job in particular. So what is missing now is approval. I saw that it was already granted by Down-Chen, so I'm happy for that. If there are like no issues or no one has other objections, I will just unhold so that the two PRs will merge. So one with the E2E test, and the other one is the change to the documentation of the field, so that we say that if it's killed by the C group killer, then the specific reason is set. And this is what is currently happening in both Cryo and Containerd. So this test validates that it runs and passes on these configurations. So that's the status. Any questions to this?
That's great. I don't have any questions about that, but I have one comment, and maybe Dawn, you can update on that. So I found this documentation about CRI test, which are in some CRI tools folder. I mean CRI tools repository, and I'm not sure what it is. Like I don't know the history. Maybe you can shed the light what the history is. And the reason I remembered about it is because this end-to-end test adds validation of specific condition when CRI needs to, like CRI implementation needs to return something specific. So I wonder if you need to do something similar, like if CRI test was designed to do that, or it was some different reason.
Well, the test just validates that.
Yeah, I think this test is great. I don't have questions about this test. I wonder about CRI tests that we had.
You mean on the cryo side?
Shouldn't Sergey, that's the first job I assigned to you. So when you join Google, so CRI test, CRI tool, cutoff, always kind of like because when we define CRI, right? So the old time, I think maybe many people might know remember, or maybe don't know already, because things happened many years ago. So when I first started the CRI project, include today's the continuity, and then there's the Red Hat start the cryo. So the many people ask for how we are going to, because the Docker, one of the reasons people want using Docker is not just Docker as the container runtime, also those tools and also testing how easy we can create off the test. So and also there's the back then, right now we only see the 2 container runtime. Back then actually there's the many team approach me to say they want to create off the container runtime, replace the Docker, and some of the people maybe still remember Rocket, right? So, but how we test those kind of things, they really implement our interface. How we are going to build the tools to provide a similar, like the Docker engine, similar like of the CLI behavior. So this is why we start this CLI test and also the CRI cutoff, both of those kind of together. So there's the separate of the sub-project funded by SIG Node. So I know many people start using the tool, and at the early time, the E2E test also is qualify all those CRI implementation is kind of our internal SIG Node treated as the container runtime conform test. So that's kind of what we are doing. So but I haven't followed the recent status. If you notice that even like the Docker conform, not today's Docker, but we try to make the Docker because there's some people put effort to similar of the Docker behavior, then how we are going to test through the Docker, but that's the separate effort I don't want to follow because that's the, I forgot the status. So that's kind of the background, the context. So what's your question, Sergey? So we have the issue.
We added this end-to-end test for specific reasons that we returned in case of kill, and I wonder if we need to do the same or similar in CRI test to validate CRIs. And maybe it was something that we mentioned before, but it totally spaced out of my mind. I only looked at it because I was reviewing contribution folder for SIG Node for annual report, and I stumbled across this file. I pasted it in here in the comments. It's in contributors for SIG Node. So I was wondering what the status of it and whether we need to extend it with this test specifically.
What me has doing is quite different from here. So that one, it is try to test the container runtime behavior. If there's the if how to do the memory, how to detect of the CPU, all those kind of things. So that's a little bit separate things. What me has doing it is, after the CI container runtime report error, how Kubernetes pick up those kind of things and surface those issues to the cluster level of the control owner, all those kind of things. So a little bit sad. It's quite different from here. So
No,
we
this specific.
here.
You both are right. You're both right. We don't currently have an integration test that does a kill based on you could create a container and give it a shot and then check for response. So that wouldn't be too hard a test case to add, and I think it would be a good one to add, Sergey, to CRY. We run CRY tests a lot more often and more frequently than we do, node tests. So probably a good idea to add it.
Okay. Yeah, and Don, this is error code on CRI specifically, so that's why I mentioned CRI test. I know that Mikhail whole cap is much wider than that. Just one step on.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks for this. If no other objections, I will just unhold the merge just after the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can create an issue to maybe have a test here and see if anybody wants to pick it up. Thank you.
Yeah, it would be a good first timer kind of issue if you want to open up in CRY tools or CRY test.
Thank you. Okay, Atanas, you're up next. Yeah, I think it's about memory QoS or QoS class-based resources, class-based resources, right?
No, it's about the Kubernetes pluggable resource manager, right? CAP, which we started, and we had our community meeting today. Basically, the objective there is, the 3675 resource plugin manager refactor. CAP. So we we were currently going through the latest state of the CAP definition, as it is online. As we went through an iteration with the reviewers just shortly before 127 CAP freeze, and we shared that with the community working group, just to get first feedback. So we identified several areas where we think we can refactor basically what's written in the CAP around the user models and some wording around kind of the non-goals and so on. So we identified some things which we can remove from our objectives. So the plan is for the next meeting in 2 weeks from now, we do also a demo based on the latest kind of prototype what we have for attribute-based configuration, and discuss some of the flows which were identified as currently needing some more documentation in the CAP. So we will be going through them with practical examples and see how we can improve the documentation and if the approach is fitting the needs. So yeah, next meeting is March 7th, same time as today.
Okay. Do you have some sort of list of open questions that you're still trying to resolve and get some opinions on, or is it somewhere in CAP?
Yes, we had some in the CAP list of open areas. So we know one open area is kubelet restart, as we are introducing a new manager which will be handling the resource management through drivers. What happens with kubelet restart, we will cover that also in the demo in 2 weeks from now. Other topic is the API, how resource requests will be more or less passed by the users, if we are going to use DRA for that, and how this will interact with the scheduling component. So we will cover also that topic. So we are looking into that. And in terms of the flows, there were opens on bootstrapping, so we have that. And what happens in case of error if drivers are failing, how the pod deployments will react to that. So we will try to cover that all through demos, give some view or some kind of ideas how this can be solved.
Many of us cannot attend because it's 6 a.m. too earlier for the West Coast. Can you just make sure just record?
Yeah, we can check with Marlo if we can find a little bit later spots. I don't know if other attendees will be available, but we can try to see if we can shift further down.
I can make a Calendly thing. People can sign it on the SIG Node. That's fine.
Yeah, and I mentioned about open issues and tracking open issues to make sure that we get approval. Like, I mean, try to get early approvals on resolving those open issues with people who will be approving final cap.
That's the objective. So we have basically Kevin and Swati helping us on that, basically giving feedback on exactly the opens, and we will try to cover.
Okay, you will need also somebody from, like, I think Derek or Don, whoever will be approving the cap.
That we find a good time slot so that it fits them. Usually I did not see them attending the 2 p.m. slot. So yeah, we might need to shuffle a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Okay, we are at the end of our agenda today. Is there anything else? I wonder what the status of in place vertical scale update is. Vinay around? So we just discussed this morning on Sidecar working group that we will be doing a lot of changes in the similar spots as this in place vertical scale feature, because it's also related to lifecycle. It's not like very intersectional, but we will likely touch the same files. So I wonder what the status here, and if Vinay is not here, we don't have anybody to tell.
I think Vinay is on vacation, so he's probably not going to be available a week or so, maybe 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you for update. Yeah, I would hate if we will do something in Sidecar work group and Vinay will need to rebase all over again, and yeah, it will be interesting. 127 promised to be a big release. I hope it will be successful. Okay, let's make it successful. I will change it. Okay, thank you, everybody. If there is no other topics, let's conclude this meeting. Bye.